Hey friends, Ari Koinuma here. Thanks for tuning in. So today I want to share with you my thoughts on 5 principles of friendships that I use to make my social life better or to make friends. And for musicians, I also think that these same 5 principles apply in terms of starting to build your fan base. So again, this I feel is like the starting point for any kind of relationship that you want to form. And if you have these 5 qualities, you will make friends. You will find people that you connect with, and with people whose company you enjoy, if you just let the process play out. So and I thought to put this together because, again, in my highly sensitive community, I see a lot of people struggling with loneliness and making meaningful connections. And let's just face it, right? I mean, relationships are hard. It just continues to be a challenge, although human beings have existed for millions of years. And we need them. We are social animals, but at the same time, relationships is probably like one of the topmost things that we struggle with. And starting new relationships is very hard. I struggle with that. But based on these 5 principles, I think I figured out my way of doing it, and it really works. So I wanted to share them with you. So the number 1 is, you can probably guess it if you saw my last video on this subject, find a common ground. And relationships are built on common ground, so whether it's values or interests or experience, you want to find something in common, or you want to pick something in common to base your sort of a relationship off of, or use it as a ground on which you can find like-minded people. Now, values obviously are very important, but it's kind of abstract, so obviously we lean more towards something concrete like interests as the common ground. And depending on what that is, also certain interests tend to attract people with similar values as well. Like, for example, if your interest is outdoors, right? I mean, people who are outdoorsy tend to care about their well-being, tend to care about the environment, tend to care about the animal welfare, those kind of things, right? Interest can suggest a value, and it's just a great way to find a common ground and start a relationship. For me, for example, I geek out over guitars, obviously, and whenever I find somebody else who's interested in guitars, that's like the instant bond, and I enjoy talking about guitars and guitar gear and guitar playing and techniques and all those things. So that served me really well as a starting ground or launching pad for friends that I have. Okay, the second principle is kind of related to like what you might see advertising and marketing people use as their foundation, which is to be a familiar face. So if you show up at any social place, that's not going to instantly sort of initiate any kind of connection. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't, right? You want to become a familiar face in some kind of situation where people can see you multiple times. Obviously, longer the better, or the more consistent the better. And just being a familiar face really reduces the risk there is in starting a relationship. So you want to be patient, and you want to pick somewhere that you can show up repeatedly, whether it's a community soccer or church or a meetup group or what have you, right? You want to become a familiar face, or online communities, right, like Facebook or someplace like that. You want to show up on a regular basis and become a familiar face, so that you can create a presence for yourself that says, hey, I'm here, I'm a regular part of this, I'm ready to and open to receiving interests. And becoming a familiar face sometimes takes a long time, so if you show up a few times, nothing happens, don't get too discouraged. Think of it more in terms of dozens of appearances, right? It does take a while to establish your familiarity. It depends on the situation. But like for example, my daughter is in theater, and she talks about the special bond that you make with cast and crewmates because they spend a lot of time together, and they definitely become familiar with each other. And I've observed the kind of relationships they develop, and I've participated in one or couple myself. And it's really nice, those theater productions. You really get to know people and become comfortable with each other. So if you have interest in getting to know new people but don't know where to go, like showing up at a community theater production might not be a bad place to go. Alright, this third one is kind of challenging for people who are introverted or shy or reserved, and that is let other people get to know you. You know those people. In a group situation, there are people who really don't talk, who don't really offer their opinions or don't pipe up and tell those stories or their point of view. And even if you become a familiar face, if you don't let other people get to know you, the door kind of stays closed, or it's harder for the door to open. And it's hard if you feel like you're nobody, or there's nothing to like about yourself, or your self-worth is low, to pipe up and say something about yourself, whether it's your thought or your story or your experience, whatever, right? Because you feel like you don't deserve other people's attention. But you do have to take courage, or I encourage you to be brave, and when the opportunity comes up where it feels like it's your turn to share your point of view, you do so. And you will find that when you start opening up and share who you are, then like-minded people respond to that. Everybody's looking for something to latch onto when in any relationship. And again, that is the common ground. And unless you share something of yourself, people don't know where they can latch onto and to start to form a relationship. So I understand that it might be uncomfortable, it might be scary, it might feel awkward, but you will want to take a first step and say, hey, this is what I think. And the fourth point is closely related to the third one, and that is be authentic. When you are sharing something about yourself, it's easy to get motivated by sort of a goal that you have in mind for other people, right? You might say something so that you can appear agreeable, or you might say something so that you appear likable. And these are all sort of a manipulative thoughts stemming from your own insecurity, saying that I am going to navigate this in a way so that I am acceptable, likable, approachable, attractive, right? And I hate to say it, but it kind of, at some point, it'll backfire. In that when people get to know you, and even if they don't think about it consciously, people are not dumb or dense, even if they say they are. People can feel the stretch or the phoniness or pretense, I should say, that you're putting on, and the relationship you build based on that will involve a lot of pretense and phoniness, and you may end up being dissatisfied or hurt by that kind of relationship. So If you thought that speaking up and letting others get to know you is scary, it's even scarier to be authentic. But I have to say, if you want meaningful connections, you have to be real, and you have to be authentic, and you have to just let yourself be seen as you are, honestly. And from there, honest and authentic and deep and meaningful relationships can start. This is really hard. I myself have to watch for it all the time. So I'm with you. I stumble all the time. I catch myself and going, ooh, did I really say that? Right? Okay. Or I would say, oh, I know why I said that. And afterwards I'm like, oh man. We're all in the same boat. It's hard. But it counts. I encourage all of us to be authentic in our social interactions, because that is really important. That really makes or breaks the difference between having unsatisfying, kind of shallow, fake relationship to more deeper, meaningful, lasting, or whatever you want to call it, right? Just real relationship. And there is a risk. Don't expect that if you are authentic, then other people react again. Like-minded people will react in a way that will resonate with you, and not like-minded people will react in a way that will not feel very good to you, and then you will receive that and you go, ooh, that person did not react very well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? You have to keep on. You have to stay on the path of honesty and authenticity, and know that they're doing you a favor, right? If they're not compatible with you, they're not reacting very well, that tells you that, yep, you and they don't have any business being too close to each other. That's okay, right? I mean, nobody is for everybody, and we're not in the game of, racking up as many likes as you can. Just know that authenticity will inspire authentic reactions, some of which feels good, some of which don't. And if you feel hurt or discouraged, that's uncomfortable, that's painful, I acknowledge that that is a reasonable reaction, but that is still not the reason to stop being who you are. So take courage, take plenty of rest. If you have to mourn or process unfavorable, painful reactions, do so, but stay focused on who you are. Okay, the last thing I think is probably the most obvious and easy one, which is to be supportive. I think that's probably fairly self-explanatory. Nobody really likes somebody who is not supportive. If you get into a relationship, everybody is looking to get something out of it, and if you're not in to give that to the other person, obviously that will create a certain kind of relationship that may not feel very good to you either. So you want to be supportive, and by supportive you want to meet the other people where they are. You want to listen to them. You want to say, hey, I relate to you if they're going through something, or even if they're sharing, a positive experience, right? You want to kind of say, hey, I hear you where you are. Again, one of the best ways to be supportive is to listen and hear them out and sort of validate their experience, or tell them that you understand them. And you'll be amazed how people will open up to you and think of you as a friend once you give them the experience of being understood. It's one of the very fundamental human needs. I'm still blown away by how powerful this single idea is. But if you want to be supportive, listen to people, tell them that you understand or you relate to them, and that will open up a lot of doors. Alright, so that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching. I hope you can take these tips and go forth and make really meaningful connections, whether it's friendship or romance or audience. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, or if you have anything to say, anything to add to it, or if you disagree with something, I'm interested in all of those, so please leave me a comment. And if you know of somebody who can really use this message, please share this video. Alright, thanks again. I'll see you next time.